breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, Romer Vivo! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN family of podcasts. We have an excellent podcast today, as joining me on the show in segment number 2 is Ben Wilson. He does such great work here at VSIN, taking a look at this great game of baseball. I know that he's done a tremendous job on the college baseball front as well, and we're going to be chatting with him about what we've seen with our hometown state, as we are both from the great state of Wisconsin. We're going to be talking a lot about the Brewers. We're going to talk a lot about the NL Central, and just how to gauge these leagues with the trade deadline about a month or so away. A lot of teams up for playoff spots, teams that might be going hot and cold, so we're going to be discussing that along with a few games for Monday. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they're making sure that bettors are able to access their funds whenever and wherever they need to. When you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll give you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Sunday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The San Diego Padres get the job done against the Kansas City Royals, this by a count of 3-2, and boy, oh boy, have the Royals been a really good under team for you thus far this season. As for the Kansas City Royals, entering into Sunday, they had played 31 overs, 46 unders, and a push. Now make it 47 unders. As for the Royals, Seth Lugo, really good start. 1 run allowed in 6 1/3 innings. Anel Zerpa from there gives up a run in a third of an inning. Lucas Erceg, 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but Daniel Lynch, he gives up a run in a third of an inning, as it was an inherited runner by John Schreiber, and he was unable to get out of it. Salvador Perez does go deep off of 1-0. Andy Vasquez, 9th home run season. Vasquez gives up 2 runs in 7 innings. Jason Adam, Robert Suarez, they both lend a scoreless inning. The Texas Rangers have been your top under team this season in baseball, but they played an over against the Pirates as they had a lot of 5-spot in the 5th inning. This by a count of 8-3. This one pains me because I actually went to high school with Caleb Bousley. Came in long relief. He gave up 5 runs in 4 innings and toasted the under. Sorry, Caleb, you didn't do us a solid there, buddy, but we still love you. Jack Leiter gives up 3 runs over the course of 4 innings, and for the Pittsburgh Pirates, you had Bailey Falter not live up to his name, but not live up to his name. 3 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. From there, Caleb Ferguson, 5 outs of the bullpen scoreless. Dennis Santana, David Benhar scoreless inning. And going back to Bousley, by the way, there was a ball that was hit in the field that should have been caught. I feel like he was done wrong here. So we will always have the back of Mr. Caleb Bousley. But that said, the Milwaukee Brewers certainly had your back. 9-8, they take down the Minnesota Twins. As for the Brewers, they go 4 of 13 with men in scoring position with a pair of bombs. Bryce Terang off of David Fessa. 5th home run season. Reese Hoskins, his 12th off of Fessa. For Fessa, it was not a fiesta. He allows 8 runs, all of which were earned on 12 hits, and that was relatively brutal for him. Over the course of 4 2/3 innings, Danny Kalum gives up a run in an inning. Griffin Jacks, he does not get Jacks up and out of the bullpen. Justin Topa, Yohan Duran, and Brock and Roll Stewart are all able to end a scoreless inning. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, Quinn Pricer gives up 3 runs in 3 1/3 innings. Did allow a home run to Byron Buxton, his 16th home run of the campaign, and then also allowed one to Mr. Ryan Jeffers, his 6th home run of the campaign. Ty France, more like win France for him, 6th home run season, and then Byron Buxton does get home run number 17 of the campaign. That did come off of Ebner Uribe. For Uribe, gives up a solo run in his inning of work. You had Jared Canning give up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Nick Mears, Trevor McGill combined for 2 scoreless innings, and then you had Grant Anderson give you a scoreless inning, and Rob Zanowski, pair of outside the bullpen, scoreless. You did see to begin the day the New York Yankees get it done against the Orioles by a count of 4-2. Just the second time in their last 9 games in which they broke the 3-run plateau. As for Baltimore, Deegan Kramer gives up 1 run in 5 2/3 innings, but Brian Baker, 3 runs, 2 of which weren't given up in 2/3 of an inning. Greg Soto in out of the bullpen scoreless. Seranthony Dominguez, a scoreless inning. Keegan Aiken, he gets an out of the bullpen scoreless. And for the Yankees, you do have Will Warren give up 2 runs in 6 1/3 innings, but Fernando Cruz, Devin Williams, both led a scoreless inning, and Tim Hill, he's able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. After losing a pair of games to start their series against the Tampa Bay Rays, the Detroit Tigers get back on track. 9-3 the final is. For Detroit, Casey Mize, pretty solid start. 1 run allowed over the course of 5 innings. Does give up a solo home run to Junior Caminero. 19th home run in the campaign. For Zach Little, he was able to come up relatively big. 1 run allowed in 5 innings, but the bullpen from there, man, this was rough. Forrest Woodley, who they got from the Houston Astros. 6 runs allowed. He did not get a single out, and he gave up a home run. As going deep off of him, Austin Meadows, his second home run in the campaign, and you had Wencio Perez get his 6th home run in the campaign as well. As this was a very overwhelming game. This game was 3-1 going into the 9th inning, so man, that was absolutely brutal to say the least. As the other home run given up by Garrett Clevenger, 2 runs allowed over the course of 2 innings. Eric Orze, a scoreless inning. Mason Montgomery, a scoreless inning. And for the Detroit Tigers, you had Brendan Hennefy give you a scoreless inning. Brent Herter does give up 2 runs while not getting it out of the bullpen, but Chase Lee, Tommy Canley, they combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Tyler Holton was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. Being able to hold down the fort and being able to get the job done as well, that'd be the Miami Marlins. 5-3, they're able to take down the Atlanta Braves. As for the Bravos, you did have Bryce Elder, look elderly, 5 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings, including a home run, as he gives it up to Kyle Stowers. First home run and an eon for him. 11th home run in the campaign. Sandy Alcantara gives up 3 runs in 6 innings, but Anthony Bender, Calvin Fauché combined for 2 scoreless innings, and Ronnie Enriquez, he's able to give you a scoreless inning. And for the Atlanta Braves, you had the Dodd father, Dylan Dodd, give you 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and you were able to get a scoreless inning out of Austin Cox along the way, as well as the team did go 2 of 10 with men in scoring position, and this team was able to hammer it home. As for the Seattle Mariners, they absolutely line base the Chicago Cubs. 14-6 a final. All 3 games at a total of north of 10. All 3 games of the series go over, as Logan Gilbert does give up 4 runs in 5 innings, including a trio of bombs. Going deep, you had Reese McGuire get his 4th home run in the campaign. For C.A. Suzuki, OIC getting home runs 19 and 20 of the season. And for Kyle Tucker, home run number 15 of the campaign. For Donovan Solano, he did get 2 home runs in this one, a big rarity for him. Goes deep off of Colin Ray, his 2nd home run in the campaign, and then Chris Flexen for his 3rd. And Cal Raleigh, big dumper off of Colin Ray, 31st of the campaign. He's out homered in 4 straight games. And Dominic Canzone, pair of bombs off of Colin Ray, his 2nd and 3rd of the campaign. For Ray, he just had to eat it in this one. 7 runs, 4 bombs given up in 5 1/3 innings. From there, Nate Pearson gives up 5 runs in 2 innings. Chris Flexen, 2 runs allowed in 1 2/3 innings. And for the Seattle Mariners, you had Gabe Spire give up 2 runs in his inning work, as he did allow a home run of his own to Mr. Kyle Tucker a little bit earlier in the game. And then you had Edward Bizzardo, Carlos Vargas, Casey Lugumina all be able to supply a scoreless inning. As for the Cincinnati Reds, 4-1, they were able to take down the St. Louis Cardinals. Andrew Abbott, he gives up 1 run over the course of 7 innings. Taylor Rogers along with Ryan Richardson, they're both able to combine for a scoreless inning. And Emilio Pagan, he was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. For Miles Michaelis, 3 runs, 2 of which weren't given up in 5 innings, as he does allow a home run to Matt McClain, his 9th home run of the campaign. Kyle Leahy from there gives up 1 run over the course of 2 innings, and Garrison Sifo, hopefully you said that correctly, he was able to supply 2 scoreless innings as well. You did have the Chicago White Sox go on the road, and they actually won a series against the Blue Jays. Their 2nd road win in a series all season, 4-2 final. And for the White Sox, they had 7 road wins entering into the series, as Adrian O'Connell, Doogie Howser, 2 runs allowed in 6 1/3 innings. Jordan Leisure from there, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Leisurely, Brandon Eisert, along with Grant Taylor, they were able to give you a scoreless inning. It was a gong fest out there in Los Angeles, as the Dodgers get a 13-7 win over the Washington Nationals. For Mike Soroka, not a bad start. 10 strikeouts, 3 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings, and then the bullpen really blew it. Ryan Lotus, 6 runs, 5 of which were earned. He didn't get a single out. Jose Ferrer gives up a solo home run in 2/3 of an inning, as going deep off of him was Max Muncy for his 10th home run season. Then off of Cole Henry, he gets his 11th home run season, and Shohei Ohtani does go deep off of Jackson Rutledge, 26th home run of the campaign. Rutledge gives up 2 runs over the course of an inning. You had Henry give up a solo home run in his inning of work, and for the LA Dodgers, for Shohei Ohtani, he was the opener. 1 scoreless inning. Ben Casparis, a bulk guy, gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings. He give up a home run to Nathaniel Lowe, 13th home run of the campaign. Anthony Banda, Lou Trevino, both on a scoreless inning. Alex Vesia, pair outside the bullpen after Kike Hernandez came in the 9th inning and was trying to light the game on fire. 4 runs allowed in the 3rd of an inning, and Kike Hernandez out 15-19 ERA. So not quite sure why the LA Dodgers keep throwing him out there. And then the other LA game, you saw the Astros get the job done 8-7 over the Halos. As for the Angels, they were able to really get to Ryan Gusto. His 6 innings involved 5 runs allowed, including a pair of bombs. Going deep off of him, Logan Hoppe, 17th home run of the campaign, and Nolan Schunel, his 6th home run season. Zach Neto was able to go deep for home run number 11 of the season off of Josh Hader. Hader gives up his home run in his inning of work. Brian Abreu, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. Brian King, pair of outs of the the bullpen, he gives up a run, and Mauricio Dubon, pair of home runs, one off of the Professor Kyle Hendricks, 4th home run of the season, and he also goes deep off Hunter Strickland for number 5, and then you had Jeremy Pena get his 11th home run of the season off of the Professor, as Hendricks gives up 5 runs, 3 of which were earned in 5 innings, including a pair of bombs. Strickland gives up 3 runs in an inning after he had not allowed to run in like 14 appearances in his inning of work, and Connor Brogdon, 2 scoreless innings. Brock and Rollberg was able to give you a scoreless inning as well. A surprisingly low-scoring game out there in Sacramento as the Athletics, they fall 3-0 to the Cleveland Guardians. Slade Sassoni, 7 scoreless innings. You had Kate Smith, Tim Aaron combined for a scoreless inning, and Emmanuel Clase, a scoreless inning, as the A's had 9 hits in this game, and the Guardians, they had only 8, but they go 1 of 6 with men in scoring position, straight 10 men on base, and JP Sears gives up 3 runs over 5 innings. Tyler Ferguson, a scoreless inning from there, and Mr. Perkins was able to give you 3 scoreless innings. Jack Perkins in his MLB debut, so he was pretty rock solid out there, and the Colorado Rockies pitching was pretty rock solid as well. They're able to do a nice job getting the job done against the Arizona Diamondbacks, this by a count of 4-2, as for the Saints, just not a lot doing at the plate. Antonio Sensatello, perhaps his best start of the year, 2 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings, while Mejia, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Tyler Kinley, Victor Vodnik, Seth Halverson all lend a scoreless inning, and Mickey Moniak goes deep off of Brandon Pfaadt for his 11th home run season. Pfaadt battled through 5 innings, giving up 4 runs. Kevin Ginkel, a scoreless inning, and then Taylor Scott, 2 scoreless innings, but just not a lot doing at the plate for the Arizona Diamondbacks, but a whole lot doing for the San Francisco Giants at the plate. 9-5, they're able to take down the Boston Red Sox, as for the Red Sox, they did have a trio of bombs. Cedane Rafaela, his 8th home run of the season off of Spencer Bivens, and then Robbie Ray gives it up to Rob Refsnyder, 5th home run of the season, and Rami Gonzalez his 2nd, but Lucas Giolito, 4 runs, 2 of which were earning in 6 innings of work, as he does allow a pair of home runs himself, as Mikey Yastrzemski gets his 6th home run of the campaign, Casey Schmidt is 4th, and then William Thomas was able to go deep for his 9th home run of the campaign. That comes off of Zach Kelly, gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings. Greg Weiser, 2 runs, 1 of which was earned in 2/3 of an inning. Justin Wilson gives up 2 unearned runs in his work, as he did not get a single out of the bullpen. Pair of errors very costly for the Boston Red Sox and for Robbie Ray. While he does give up 4 runs, 3 of which were earned in 5 innings, the Giants, who have the lowest bullpen ERA in the big leagues, they come up big. Eric Miller, Tyler Rogers, Randy Rodriguez, all lend a scoreless inning, and Spencer Bivens gives up that home run in his inning work. And then doing this as Sunday Night Baseball is going along, as I had cashing out on Sunday from 11 to 2 a.m. on VSIN, the Sports Betting Network. But that said, as of right now, it looks like the Phillies are going to completely land base the New York Metropolitans. This is 7-0 going into the 8th inning, as for the Philadelphia Phillies, really good start here from Ace Luzardo. 6 2/3 inning scoreless from there. Jordan Romano is giving it out of the bullpen. We'll see if Max Laser is able to polish it off. But David Peterson, great name, not such a great night. Kyle Schwarber goes deep off of him, 24th home run of the season. Umondo Sosa is 2nd, as he gave up 5 runs in 4 innings. From there, Chris Savinsky, Dom Nunez have both lent a scoreless inning. And now you've got Mr. Zuber in the game. Tyler Zuber gave up a pair of runs in the 7th inning as well. So looking like the Phillies should be able to get the job done there. If you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it's been right around about a 53% rate to the under this far this season, as overall, we have been seeing the under hitting at 52.9%, 590 unders, 525 overs, with favorites hitting on the money line at 58.3%, 672 and 481. Meanwhile, if you take a look at the last 7 days in baseball, things are starting to heat up nationwide, and so are the overs, as we have seen 44 overs, 46 unders, so more of a 51% rate to the under, with favorites hitting at 63%, 58 and 34 with Sunday Night Baseball pending. So that's where we're getting trend-wise in Major League Baseball, and that's what we all saw on Sunday. Now let's talk about the NL Central, the Milwaukee Brewers, and so much more with Ben Wilson, who does great work here on VSIN. On the flip side, here on the Baseball Betting Show, myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSIN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as Ben Wilson. He does great work here at VSIN, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and he does a great job on so many different fronts. I know that he's getting set for football season. He does play-by-play work all across tennis, college baseball, college basketball, indoor football, you name it, he does it. He's all across the network, and you're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Ben and underscore his last name, Wilson, and then another underscore and the number 1 altogether. And Ben, it's great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Absolutely, Greg. Loving this time of year, especially as much as I am, weirdly not sour, but not necessarily expecting this stretch of baseball from the Brewers to continue. They just keep winning, and we're not going to complain. There's a couple of guys from the great state of Wisconsin.
Yep, no question about it. And I have to ask you about this first. What do we make of the Brewers' home and road splits in terms of hitting? Because they're averaging fewer than 3.6 runs per game, 5.6 runs per game away from home, a full 2 runs per game more away from home. And you know this as well as I do. American Family Field, better known as Miller Park, it's not necessarily a hitter's ballpark. It's not necessarily a pitcher's ballpark. It's relatively neutral. So these splits just feel like they've come from out of nowhere.
It is weird. I kind of have thought of it as, it just seems like they've had long homestands. They've had some long road trips. And when they've been playing really good baseball, it feels like it's come in some of these road series, weirdly enough. I mean, you think about what they just did, right? I mean, going to Minnesota, a team who had been so hot and obviously have really cooled off in June. But, I mean, they completely go in there and just mash their way to a series win. They've looked really good at Wrigley Field at times. They've looked good playing on the road at a lot of really good teams so far this year. I'm willing to chalk it up to just that so far. But at the same time, I mean, we're almost at the 50% of the way mark here through the regular season. It's one of those just weird oddities. It's so hard to actually put your finger on why that is happening. I mean, like a guy, pitching wise, they've had guys who've been able to perform really well both home and road, or guys who are great at home and poor on the road. So I just chalk it up as sort of randomness. They keep finding ways to stay relevant within the division, and they've even moved into the top 3 wild card places for the first time all year, which is really significant. As always with them, it's just a matter of A, how long can that general hitting prowess last despite not a ton of hard contact, and then B, this unbelievable Jacob Misiorowski story. Where does it go from here? I mean, checking the other day, Greg, he's down to 2-1 to win NL Rookie of the Year. Wow. It's absolutely insane after 10 innings of data so far on him, basically.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And this is a Brewers pitching staff that, as we know, it's been a little bit up and down. Quinn Pricer didn't necessarily have the world's greatest start on Sunday. And Jose Quintana, if you look at the fielding independent numbers, he should be in for a lot of, shall we say, regression. But it just feels like somehow, some way, they're finding a way to get the job done. And Misiorowski could be the shot in the arm that they truly needed.
Yeah, the thing for me, and I would normally be all in on getting any sort of exposure I could in the futures awards market on Misiorowski. It's just anytime you get a pitcher, who comes in, who's had injury concern in the past, had a Tommy John, and had something like that, and throws the way he does. Like, we just don't see this. I mean, 101, 102 with the fastball consistently, slider at 96. I mean, it's nuts what he does with the baseball. The question is, okay, how cautious, careful will they be with him as we get later? I think on the one hand, it's good he didn't even, make his debut till mid-June. On the other hand, like, how many starts does he get? If they're in the legit hunt for a playoff spot, how do they handle him down the home stretch as such a catalyst here for the future? The odds are where they're at because this is such a wide open NL Rookie of the Year race. I mean, I've seen people make the case for Ben Kasparius just because he's a bulk reliever for a team who's going to win a ton of games, and he could just pick up a lot of cheap wins. So that's where I'm still a little unsure as to how this plays out for Misiorowski. I think you have to, betting wise, every 5 days, just kind of juice the orange while you have the opportunity.
No question about it. And with the Milwaukee Brewers, they are going to be returning home on Monday now, as well as Ben Wilson. He does great work here at the network. He's joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Now, what makes things tricky for this handicap is that we have no idea what the Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be throwing out there. It's TBD. Right now, the board over at CBS Sports is saying Carmen Mlodzinski, and that would indicate a bullpen game. But what do you anticipate from the Brewers on Monday with regards to hitting? Because, again, these home and road splits are just so funky, and I could easily see this being a low-scoring slog if for no other reason than the Pirates have not been scoring all season long, too.
When Milwaukee played Pittsburgh earlier this year, and those were games in Pittsburgh, but it took a lot, it felt like, for Milwaukee to score runs in that series. Same thing for Pittsburgh. I definitely anticipate it on the lower scoring side of things. In Pittsburgh, I saw them in person. They came out here to the West Coast. They had a series against the Padres. Like, they've consistently been a team that, at least the arms they have, I think there's this sense that it's just, okay, Paul Skeens every 5th day, and then it's just a dumpster fire, which, isn't all that far off, but at least like the arms that Pittsburgh have. And, if it's a bullpen game, that doesn't mean necessarily like that Pittsburgh doesn't have any options. They've actually got some good arms, and they're able to keep good lineups at bay. It's just the consistency hitting wise is not even close to anything, and you can't rely on that whatsoever. So it just puts them in a spot where there's not much margin for error. And that's really been the story with Pittsburgh time and again. So, yeah, coming off a series where, you score almost 20 runs in one game, you score 9 back-to-back games. We kind of expect off that Twin Series things come down a little bit. I wouldn't say just because the Brewers are playing red hot, now they come home and you get a bullpen game. I don't think that just automatically means like go fire on a Brewers team total over just because of those splits you mentioned and kind of the randomness that implies, along with how much better the Pirates bullpen is than maybe they're getting credit for.
Yep, not a question about it. I do think that with the Milwaukee Brewers, it's going to be a fascinating series, and one that I think that they really need to sweep over the Pittsburgh Pirates, because I just take a look at that National League playoff picture. Obviously, who doesn't win the division between the Mets and the Phillies is going to be up for a wild card spot. Those NL West teams are as well, and I think that for teams like the Milwaukee Brewers, when you face a bunch like the Pittsburgh Pirates, Chicago White Sox, insert your bad team here, it's just paramount to be able to sweep these series.
Exactly, especially now that you also have to bake in. I mean, there's going to be some really tough stretches, down the rest of the year. We really haven't seen that many Brewers-Cubs games yet. I mean, Brewers-Cardinals that are going to have a huge impact. We saw the one rainout for the Brewers-Cubs that will now even add on to what was already going to be a big series later on this season in August. So, yeah, you've kind of reached that point now for Milwaukee where I think the one thing I will say is sustainable for the Brewers. There were so many like little intangible things, base running mistakes, defensive errors. They really have cleaned up. And that's the one thing you always know, that under a Pat Murphy led team, you can count on room for improvement there. And they've really overcome a lot of those issues just by different defensive placements, just by reps more than anything with a lot of young guys on that roster. So I'm with you. It's 100% what you have to do now. And I think the next thing will be for an organization that's never been spenders at all at the deadline, what does Mark Atanasio give their front office leeway to do from a deadline perspective when everybody can use a pitcher, but certainly Milwaukee can, with the number of arms who've been banged up, with the lack of durability, all the number of guys they've had to go through. We're getting pretty close to that territory here with the trade deadline not all that far away.
Yep, and that is coming up sooner rather than later. And I think that that's such an interesting topic as well, as Ben Wilson, who does such great work here at VSIN, is joining me on the Baseball Betting Show. And I know you do a few futures from time to time. Is there anything that you are taking a look at with the trade deadline coming up? Because I know out there in the National League, we've got a lot of intrigue. And the American League, aside from the A's and the White Sox, seemingly everyone is right now eligible for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. I think probably the goal of Major League Baseball with the third wild card spot was to be in this exact situation, right, where you pretty much could count in as many teams as humanly possible. I think what we've seen the last couple of years, it's probably been, I think some people were assuming, we're not going to have as many trades because teams, you don't have a proportionate amount of sellers versus buyers. But what you've actually seen is, I think, teams have been willing to do deals. They're just not necessarily blockbuster deals, which actually can help the smaller market teams, right? It's the teams who can, make an incremental bullpen increase, add another left-handed bat to the lineup, something that you often have now seen since the third wild card. You see teams who are trying to win now trade with other teams also trying to win now. And so I look at the smaller market teams as the ones that are likely to benefit from that the most, honestly. And so teams that are not out of it, like this AL Central, which has just been, that's a division where you had the Twins get super hot. They come way back down to earth. Tigers have certainly looked good, but are not without their flaws. Guardians, Royals are teams you can't count out whatsoever. And with the games they get against the White Sox, that certainly helps too. I look at a team like KC that around this time a season ago started to really get hot. And they did it not by any big splashy moves, just by bolstering a pitching staff that already is really solid, by adding guys they know that can fit in really well with that lineup, that really prioritizes speed and finding gaps, playing their home games at the K. So that's one team not that I'd say jump in right this second and look at a futures on them, but that's a team I want to see how they try to approach the deadline, and one that with the good quality start capability they have at the top of that rotation, I do like them in a lot of matchups, just single game wise.
And I do think that they're an intriguing team to be taking a look at in general. And when I take a look at the board that we've got for Monday, it's a very interesting series between the Seattle Mariners and the Minnesota Twins as well, because I look at this Twins team that just lost to the Brewers in their series over the weekend, and they're such an intriguing bunch. And for Seattle, currently they're number 2 out there in the American League. I know that Bailey Ober's a guy that you've taken a look at quite a bit throughout his career, and he's right around even money. How do you gauge this game and both of these teams moving forward?
Yeah, and Ober was really bad his last start. I mean, I don't think there's many people I wish I rather was not than Rocco Baldelli right now. I mean, what a rough stretch of baseball this has been. And I'm very pro Ober. I expect a bounce back for him. If anything, I think I'd just look under for the game Monday because, you have Ober and Minnesota in general. The pitching has been so rough the last week. But I don't see their bats just all of a sudden like getting out of this slump. I know they had the rally late against Milwaukee, took that game, made it really interesting in a 9-8 loss. But You're also looking at Seattle, who I think the pitching numbers got inflated a little bit because they had to go to Wrigley. I mean, the last two games of that series were played in 95-degree temperatures with the wind blowing straight out and gusting at Wrigley. And we had, a 12.5 and an 11.5 total that both just went flying over. And then you had the Minnesota series where all three games go over pretty comfortably. So I would look for a little regression there. Both teams, though, to me, are very similar in that they feel incredibly streaky. They're both really hard to rely on. They've got great individuals, a couple of really outstanding pitchers, but bullpens that you can't necessarily rely on. You've got lineups that they can pop in bunches, but they also go through droughts. And in a matchup against them, I kind of look at just sort of, you try to isolate what the situation dictates. And for me, the situation is teams have played just extraordinarily to the overs and probably are due for some regression in that way. I would just, at least for game one, look for that balloon to be deflated, so to speak, Greg, and look under to start that series.
Yeah, and with this Minnesota Twins team, I still do have some question marks about this lineup as well. Like, we did see them bust out for 8 runs against the Milwaukee Brewers on Monday as well, but Brian Wu has been pretty rock solid, so I think that one is very interesting, and I think that this is a fascination as well, as we've been talking about a lot of the NL Central, and for the St. Louis Cardinals, I just don't know what to make out of them right now, but I feel relatively good about Matthew Liberatore. Right now, he's minus 110 against the Cubs. Recognize that Liberatore has given up 4+ runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts, but he's one of the guys for the Cardinals that I really trust the most. And Ben Brown has a fielding independent that's ridiculously 2 points lower than his ERA. I look at that total of 9, and maybe I'm off base here, but I think that the Cubs might have a tough time transitioning from Wrigley, where it was just a total bandbox all weekend long, and I think that could provide a little bit of value to an under.
It's fair. And I think the one thing I'd say is Brown has really struggled early in games. I mean, he's been one of the worst first inning pitchers in Major League Baseball. It just seems like for whatever reason he needs like a first few batters to just settle in. And once he's settled in, like he's that classic pitcher, he kind of gets on a roll and in a rhythm. And I've been really impressed with him once he's done that. But, the ERA of over 5.5 kind of indicates, it doesn't necessarily indicate exactly his true potential there. So I don't mind at all looking at that. Maybe you look at kind of like in-game under on that, where you see Brown get off to if the tough start continues, or maybe you go first inning run and then look to go under. But yeah, I mean, same principle kind of applies when the two teams have just played in Wrigley. Mariners, like we just talked about, and now the Cubs come off of basically playing in like a Pacific Coast League at elevation ballpark, and now you actually go into like a normal Major League dimensional park of St. Louis.
Yep, absolutely. I'm right there with you. And Ben, is there anything else that you're taking a look at, whether that be on the futures board, or perhaps that's another game or two that we've got on a somewhat limited slate for Monday?
Not a big slate by any means. Looking at what's interesting is the Red Sox Angels here for the night game, and Angels bats have, again, another team that's just super hit or miss. And Logan O'Hoppe has, I would say, been one of the more streakier catchers in the game this year. He hit 3 homers over the last 2 games. And now they get, Walker Buehler, near ERA nearly 6. He's clearly not the pitcher he was. Goes to Angel Stadium. It's been this long West Coast road trip for the Red Sox. And I just wonder for them coming off of that series where there was so much attention, right? Because it's the Devers series, first time seeing him. Well, now you go to Anaheim, Angel Stadium in Anaheim, and maybe that's not to say like a letdown spot by any means, but I'm not really loving what I'm seeing out of Walker Buehler. So not like Kachanowicz for the Angels, who has a near 5.50 ERA in his own right, has been all that well, but I would not be stunned. Like maybe looking at like an Angels team total over. Pitching has never been a strong point at all this year for the Angels, but it feels like a spot where they would be in a pretty good situation on a long homestand to come out and continue the hot bats rolling there for Monday night.
No question, and I do think that is going to be a fun game to take a look at for Monday, and we've got ourselves just a lot of great baseball in general coming up in the next few weeks, and Ben, you're doing a great job of gauging it all. You're doing a great job getting set for football. You do a great job with all of your play-by-play work as well, so let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, you got it, Greg, at Ben_Wilson_1. Shows for VSIN right now. A lot of play-by-play on the arena football side, so doing my best to stay busy, man. It's a fun time of year for sure.
It certainly is, and every single time Ben joins me, he lends amazing insight. So big thanks to Ben for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. They give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Ben Wilson. He does such great work here at VSIN, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. I know he's been doing a great job on the front of college baseball as well, and he, much like myself, a man from the great state of Wisconsin. Always great to be able to talk NL Central, Brewers, and so much more with him. So big thanks to Ben for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Monday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started with 901, 902 on the betting board. The Atlanta Braves are on the road facing off against the New York Mets. Paul Blackburn walks the plank for the Mets. Spencer Schwellenbach is on the bump for the Braves. The Braves are between minus 116 to minus 125 favorites, and between plus 105 to plus 110 is that number on the Metropolitans. 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. Now, the Braves are going to be coming off of playing on Sunday Night Baseball, and typically this is a fade spot. I just simply can't do it here with Paul Blackburn. I have to fade here. I set the Braves at a minus 128, and I know that the Braves had not been good on the road, but Spencer Schwellenbach has been very rock solid all season long. Had a little bit of a rough patch in late April, early May, but that said, this has been a guy that has been able to limit the walks and limit the just overall damage. 1.1 home runs, 1.5 walks per 9 innings, 3.26 ERA, fielding pennant more in that neighborhood, about a 3.33, so I do think that he's going to do a good job of going out there and holding down the fort. And on the flip side, you do have yourself a guy in Paul Blackburn who he's made a few starts, he's made a few long relief appearances, and just in general, it's not been effective. 6.92 ERA. Now, he does have a 3.76 fielding, depending on that he's not giving up the deep ball, but he's also getting 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. This is a guy with a career 6.9 strikeouts at 3 walks per 9. It's not like he's ever been really some sort of great pitcher or anything like that. Now, where the Mets do go right is that they do have the better bullpen in this case. Oscar Barzobin has been very rock solid, being able to supply the team with a sub 2.50 ERA. Edwin Diaz is starting to look like the Edwin Diaz of old, and you've been able to have Reed Garrett be able to give you some good innings as well. So you do like to see that. And for this Metropolitans bunch, they do have a very rock solid lineup in which you've got a quartet of guys who have been able to give you at least 13 home runs thus far this season. Brandon Nimmo not necessarily hitting for a ton of average, but he's certainly doing a good job knocking it out. Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, all at least 15 home runs, and Lindor has really played admirably through his injury. Now Starling Marte is starting to be able to move the line for the team as well. Now the guys at the bottom of the fold, like Tyrone Taylor, he's been a little bit better, but could use a bit more there. But on the flip side, you do have an Atlanta Braves team that has Ronald Acuna Jr. And Ronald Acuna Jr., since coming off the injury list, has been absolutely insane, being able to give you well north of a 450 on base. The guy is already up to, I think going into yesterday, 8 home runs in his first 27 games. So yeah, he has been absolutely amazing for this team. And Drake Baldwin is moving line for this team. He's hitting north of 290. Austin Riley, 12 home runs. He's hitting for about a 270. Matt Olson, north of 360 on base. So these guys have been able to do a very solid job there. Could use a little bit more out of Ozzie Albies and Michael Harrison for the Atlanta Braves, right around about the league average bullpen. Desbel Hernandez being on the injury list has hurt this team, but more of the middle guys like a Dylan Lee, Aaron Bummer being able to give you a sub 350 ERA have been solid. Anjali Dos Santos starting to go down the toilet on Raisel Iglesias, man. That's been rough, but that said, I do think that Schwellenbach delivers a good start, and I just don't have any faith here in Paul Blackburn. I set my total at 8.6 on the 8.5. I like the over and the Braves up to a minus 128 on that money line. We go at 903, 904 on the betting board. The Pittsburgh Pirates are on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers. Chad Patrick is on the bump for the Brewers. Right now, it's all to be determined on the bump for the Buccos, so this is a game that's presently off the board. When I was checking out CBS Sports, they were projecting Carmen Molodzinski, and if you get Carmen Molodzinski, he came in relief in the previous series, so this is essentially going to be a bullpen game for the Pirates, so if you do get a bullpen game, I set the Brewers at a minus 196. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 195 there, plus 197 or higher. Looking at the Pirates, essentially even money on the run line or better. We'll be looking at the Brewers and set a total of 8.2, 8 or less. I like the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. The Pirates were able to have a nice outburst on Sunday in which they were able to put up a nice 5 spot in the 5th inning. Other than that, they just have not been able to supply you with too much. Dead last in the big leagues with about 3.2 3.2 runs per game. And the Brewers, I do think that their home and road splits are going to iron out a little bit, but this is a Brewers team that's averaging north of 5.6 runs per game at home, fewer than 3.6 at home. They're literally averaging more than 2 runs per game more when they're on the road rather than at home. It's not like Miller Park is like some sort of a pitcher's ballpark or anything like that. Now, it's not necessarily the world's greatest hitter's ballpark, but it's about a net neutral ballpark. Let's call it what it is. So I do think that something's got to give here. And for the Brewers, they've been able to do a nice job with the small ball. A quartet of different guys with at least 10 stolen bases, as Bryce Terang, Sal Frelick, Jackson Chourio, Christian Yelich are all there. And Yelich has been rock solid, being able to play this team with 14 plus home runs. He's now hitting for about a 260, so he is really starting to round into form. Isaac Collins, William Contreras, Rhys Hoskins, I'll give you at least a 340 on base. Hoskins up to 12 home runs. So, these guys are moving the line. They are still a bottom 8 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, and it is a Brewers bullpen that has fallen down the toilet bowl from where they've been in past years, and they did have to use up a lot of guys. Yesterday, you had to use DL Turner Paul, Nick Mears, Abner Uribe, Grant Anderson, Rob Sanofsky, all these guys providing a sub 341 ERA, so that is a little bit of an issue for the team, but most of these guys threw less than 20 pitches, so they should have quite a few guys that should be effective here. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it is a bullpen that's been much better recently. This is a Pirates bullpen that does rank in the top 10 in terms of ERA over the last 35 days, and you've been able to get some relatively good effective innings out of Dennis Santana, David Benner, Caleb Ferguson, but all 3 of those guys were used up yesterday. If you do get Milad Zinski, when he's been a starter, he's been ineffective, I think is the best way of putting it, though. Even though he's been ineffective as a starter, this is someone that is able to, at the very least, be able to give you a, shall we say, representative example, and he's not going to get into too much issue. He has been giving up about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, about 3 walks per 9. The swing and miss stuff has been down, but I do think that he's doing for some positivity with that 5.67 ERA. Guys like Chase Shogert and company should be able to give you some solid innings, but again, what are you going to be able to get out of this lineup? I recognize that they had the outburst yesterday, but right now you've got 3 guys on the roster with north of 4 home runs. Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, and it's not even like Reynolds and Cruz are hitting for average. Those 2 guys, Alexander Canario, Henry Davis, Jared Trollo, you go down the list of guys hitting a 220 or lower. Brian Hayes is hitting a 230 with 2 home runs. You just need more out of these guys, so I set a low total here, especially with Chad Patrick and the way that he's been relatively effective in the role of a starter. He has had a few not so great starts recently, and he's not going to be some sort of strikeout artist. He is getting fewer than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but still has been highly effective as a starter. A sub 335 ERA, fielding dependent, right around about 359, giving up less than a home run per 9 innings, and he has been able to do a pretty rock solid job at home this far this season. So 8 or less like the over, 8.5 or higher the under. For the Brewers, even money or better, I like the run line plus 197 or higher, like the Buccos, 9 of 5, 9 of 6 on the card. The Chicago Cubs are on the road against the St. Louis Cardinals. Matthew Liberatore is on the bump for the Cards, and Ben Brown is on the bump for the Cubs. And the Cubs do find themselves as slim underdogs of anywhere between even money to minus 110 and between minus 108 to minus 115. That number on St. Louis, and 9 is the total. Under is minus 115. Over is minus 105, and I'm going to go with the Liberatore. I set the Cardinals at a minus 122. For Matthew Liberatore, he has given up 4 plus runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts, but still has been able to do a solid job this season of not hurting himself. Though he has a 4.08 ERA, the only pennant is a 3.04. 0.8 home runs, 1.2 walks allowed per 9 innings. He's only getting in the neighborhood about 7.5 to 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but I really like what he's been able to show this far this season. And for Ben Brown, he is doing for a lot of positivity. 5.57 ERA, but that 3.44 fielding dependent speaks to me. 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He is giving up the walks. He is wild with north of 3 walks per 9, but he's getting 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. And since May 1st, entering in the day on Sunday, the Cubs had the best bullpen ERA in the big leagues at a 2.39. So many guys are able to mix and match with Drew Pomeranz, Daniel Palencia, Brad Keller, Caleb Theobar. All these guys entering into Sunday with a sub-3 ERA. Ryan Presley, after a rough start to the season, he's been able to look a little bit more effective. And for the St. Louis Cardinals, it's been touch and go, but the long guy in Steven Matz recognized that he had a little bit of a less than savory last series, but he, Phil Matone, Kyle Leahy, Jojo Romero, a bunch of guys giving you a sub-375 ERA. Ryan also has been a little bit of an issue. He has blown quite a few games this far this season, but like I said, you do have a St. Louis Cardinals team that is really not ripping the cover off the ball. This team is in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of of home runs on a per at-bat basis. You've been able to get Nolan Arenado and Wilson Contreras going. Both of these guys up to 10 home runs thus far this season, but both of these guys hitting below 250. Brendan Donovan, along with Alec Burleson, have been hitting above 300. Ivan Herrera has been solid as well, but he's now on the injury list, so that means that you're looking at the likes of Pedro Pajes and company at the catcher spot. Yozan Pozo is going to need to give you a little bit as well. Lawrence Nootbaar has seen a dip in average to about a 230, and on the Chicago Cubs side of things, they are clearly going to outgun the St. Louis Cardinals team with regards to run production. I do think that might be a little bit difficult transitioning away from Wrigley Field, though. It was hot. It was blowing out all weekend long, so you just had slugfest upon slugfest with likes of Pete Armstrong, Seiya Suzuki, a combined 39 home runs between those two guys. Dansby Swanson, Kyle Tucker are both up to 14 home runs. Ian Happ has 10 bombs. Michael Busch has 12 bombs. So, these guys are hitting the home runs, and there's a lot of average here. With Kyle Tucker, a 395 on base, he's been able to do a nice job swiping some bags. You've gotten good production out of Nico Horner, who's been able to move line. He's hitting north of a 280 for this unit as well. So, I do think that's a very interesting spot, but I do think that Liberatore holds down the fort. I semi-tell it at 8.3. I like the under, and I do like the Cardinals up to a minus 122 on the money line, 907, 908 on the betting board. The Washington Nationals are on the road. They're facing off against the Slam Diego Padres. We know that it's going to be Mitchell Parker on the bump for Washington. Right now, it's all to be determined who's going to be on the bump for the San Diego Padres, which is a big reason why this game is off the board. Now, if you look at the predictions on CBS Sports, it's showing Stephen Kolek, and if you do get Mr. Kolek, I set the Padres minus 226 on the money line. We'll be willing to go up to a minus 115 on that run line, plus 227 is what I would need on the Nats, and I did some. I told it at 8.4. 8 or less, looking at the over, 8.5 or higher, the under. I think Mitchell Parker might be doing for a little bit of positivity, but after he had a good first 7 or so starts of the season, he actually had things really rocking and rolling first month and a half of the season. Boy, the milk has turned sour for him. 4.59 ERA, 4.35 fielding dependent, just doesn't generate a lot of swings and misses. 6.5 strikeouts at 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and he's given up 3+ runs in 4 out of his last 6 starts. Not great, Bob, not great, and he goes up against a bunch that, they really haven't slugged out the deep ball too much. I will say for Parker, he was doing a good job of keeping the ball in the yard to begin the season. 7 bombs allowed in his last 5 starts, so that has really been less than tremendous, but as we know out there at Petco Park, it's a little bit more, shall we say, pitcher friendly, so that is going to be able to help him out quite a bit. And you've got a guy in Fernando Tatis Jr. who's been able to supply you 14 home runs at 355 on base. Manny Machado and Kevin Sheets are both up to 12 home runs, and with Machado, he's been hitting above a 300. Now, the bottom of the lineup with these mix and match outfielders like Brandon Lockridge, Tyler Wade, and the entirety of the catcher spot has been a little bit of an issue. Jake Cronenworth, not necessarily hitting for a ton of power, but it's giving you north of 350 on base. And Xander Bogaerts has actually looked a little bit better recently. Yay, verily there for the Washington Nationals. It has been a unit that has been all over the place with regards to their offense. James Wood is providing good wood, 21 bombs, 375 on base. You'll love to see that. And then Nathaniel Lowe, CJ Abrams, both up to a double-figure bombs apiece. Now, you do have quite a few guys for the Nationals not providing a lot of average. Lowe, along Josh Bell, both hitting a 230 or lower. I will say Abrams is up to about a 350 on base. Jose Tena has been a little bit up and down. He's not necessarily giving you a ton of power, but Ahmed Rosario has been able to move line for this team as well. And I do think that in this circumstance, the Washington Nationals bullpen being less than savory is very costly. They are dead last in the National League in terms of bullpen ERA. As you got Kyle Finnegan, who's been able to give you some solid innings, but even in the series against Colorado Rockies, blew a save. Had Cole Henry have his ERA creep up north of a 350, and then from there, Zach Brzezinski, along with Eduardo Salazar, when he's been out there, Jackson Rutledge, these guys gave you north of 450 ERA. Just not great, to say the least. And for the San Diego Padres, whether you do get Stephen Kolek or someone else, this has been a bullpen that has been very good for them. They have been a top 8 team in terms of bullpen right now. Robert Suarez has been an issue. He has blown a few games for them over the last, we're going to call it about 10 or so days, but you still have the likes of Adrian Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, Jason Adam. These guys give you a sub-3.5 ERA, and for the San Diego Padres, if you do get Stephen Kolek, he's been pretty rock solid. Not going to give you a whole bunch of strikeouts or anything like that, but has been able to do a solid job of keeping things out in front of him, keeping the ball in the yard. He's given up less than 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. Again, only about 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 3.69 ERA. He's keeping things out in front of him, and I do think that he shuts down this Nationals lineup. So 8 or less, looking at the over 8.5 or higher, the under. Want to go up to a minus 117 on that Padres run line, plus 227 or higher, looking at the Nats. 9 to 9, 9 10 on the card. You've got the Baltimore Orioles playing us to the Walker Texas Rangers. Patrick Corbin is on the bump for the Rangers, and Trevor Rogers goes for Baltimore. Baltimore is a minus 125 to a minus 130 favorite. In between plus 110 to a plus 115, that number on Texas. And 9.5 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. I did set the Orioles at a minus 123, and if you're taking a look at laying a run half with the Baltimore Orioles, you're going to be fine that right now on that FanDuel opener in the neighborhood about a plus 140 or so. I would need more like a plus 160, so we're going to be in a little bit of wait and see mode there, but I think that when it's all said and done, it should be able to get closer to about a minus 123 on this money line. I don't want to go too far on Trevor Rogers because I think that both of these guys are going to have a little bit of a, shall we say, less than tremendous start, but man, you got a pair of teams that have been also very inconsistent at the plate all season long. The good news for Baltimore is that you're getting Colton Cowser back in the fold along Jordan Westbrook. That helps. Ryan O'Hearn has been that main constant, 10 home runs, 375 on base, and those Cedric Mullins is up to 12 plus home runs. The fact that he's hitting less than a 230 has been less than tremendous. Gunnar Henderson has been pretty solid, hitting about a 270. Power numbers have been a little bit down, but Jackson Holliday has also come along for the ride. And for Rogers in his 2 starts, not bad. He's won 8 2/3 innings and he's given up 3 runs. But if you look at the minor league level where you've got a much bigger sample size, I mean, he's been absolutely lambasted. 5.51 ERA, 8 strikeouts to 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Not really giving you a lot of swing and miss. And he had that really good first start. He didn't even make it a full 4 innings in his last start. And you've got a Baltimore Orioles bullpen that is ranked in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of ERA. You've got Felix Bautista, who's been really good in this bullpen. And then if you need a little bit of longer guy, Keegan Aiken, he's a former starter. He's giving you a sub-3 ERA, so that's something that's pretty solid for the team. And Anthony Dominguez hasn't been as bad. He and Gregory Soto, sub-355 ERAs, but Andrew Kittredge, Junior Cano, don't you know, these guys are giving you north of a 470 ERA. Matt Bowman has been a big giant roll of the dice, and on the other side, you've got a lineup in the Texas Rangers that they're just not scoring right now. They're in the bottom 6 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Recognize it's been a little bit better for them, but Corey Seager, since coming off the injury list, has not been himself. He's hitting at 234 for the season, and then you've got the likes of Dolis Garcia, Marcus Semien, Jake Berger, guys hitting right around about a 225 to 240. Berger is up to a double-figure amount of bombs, and Jock Peterson being on the injury list has probably been a good thing for the team, but not a lot of power outside of that. Jonah Heim is giving you 267 on base. Sam Haggerty is hitting at 280, and Josh Smith about a 280 as well, but you just need a bit more there for the Texas Rangers bullpen. They have been a top 8 team with regards to bullpen area. Now, Jacob Latz, who has been a very solid long guy, he's probably going to need to be given the team some starts moving forward, but that said, you've been able to have quite a few guys come in there and hold down the fort, like Chris Martin, Colt Winn, Robert Garcia. These guys have been able to give you a sub-325 ERA, and I do think that for the Baltimore Orioles, they should be a little bit of a favorite here, especially with the fact that I think that Patrick Corbin is very much due in for some regression. For Corbin, overall for the season, he's posting up a nice sub-4 ERA, but it's not like he's been overly impressive. He's given up 3 earned runs or fewer, and I believe all but 2 of his starts, but 459 fielding dependent, 6.7 strikeouts to 3 walks per 9 innings, giving up 1.4 bombs per 9, so I just don't necessarily see it there. I did set my total of 9.2, a very tricky situation. I just don't know how much run support you get out of the Texas Rangers, so I like the under end at a minus 123 or less, like Baltimore on the money line. 9-11, 9-12 on the card. You've got the Seattle Mariners on the road against the Minnesota Twins. Bailey Ober's on the bump for the Twins. Brian Wu says woohoo to another start for Seattle, and this is a pick'em game. Both of these teams are right around about minus 110, and Zion's game is between 8 and 8.5. On the 8.5, under is minus 115, the over is minus 105. On the 8, the over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for the Mariners, I did set them at a minus 106. If we get like a minus 105 dime line, I would be willing to go with the Seattle Mariners here. For Brian Wu, it has been a really nice season for him in general. The swing and miss stuff is solid. It's not necessarily amazing, but he's going to get you right around about 8 to 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Man has been supreme. 1.5 walks allowed per 9 innings, 312 ERA, 349 fielding dependent. So doing a nice job locking it down there. Has been a little bit more rough on the road rather than at home throughout his career, but all in all, doing a nice job there, and you're going to expect that from a lot of these Seattle Mariners pitchers. And then for Bailey Ober, it's been just a little bit disastrous for him recently. A 4.54 ERA has given up at least 4 runs at each out of his last 3 starts, and he's really along the deep ball, 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but additionally, he's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, so that's been a bit of a problem for him. And when it comes to this Minnesota Twins lineup, they were able to have a nice outburst yesterday against the Milwaukee Brewers, and Byron Buxton has really been the leader for this team as he's now been able to supply 17 home runs. He has gotten oh so hot for the team, at 350 on base, but I still have some issues with this team. Cody Clemens, Kiersey Jr. at the bottom of the fold, Matt Wallner, a lot of guys hitting a 220 or lower. Jonah Bride is giving you nothing whatsoever. Carlos Correa is now hitting above a 250, but he's not supplying you with a ton of on base or a lot of power. It's a Minnesota Twins team that in general has been in the bottom 10 in terms of home runs on a per at bat basis, and we have noticed this Twins bullpen has been in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of ERA over the last 40 days. Now the top guys are still the top guys. Brock and Roll Stewart has been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. Yohan Donan has been able to give you a sub 2 ERA. Danny Kalum, the opener yesterday, the run that he gave up was his second run given up all season long, but we have seen Justin Topa give you north of 4 ERA. Griffin Jackson has not been good all season long. And for the flip side, for the Seattle Mariners, you've got a once again top heavy bullpen as you've got Gabe Spire, Matt Brash, along with Andres Munoz give you a sub 3 ERA. These guys have been very rock solid. Now for the Seattle Mariners, coming off of a series where the run scoring did not stop against the Chicago Cubs, so that was very interesting to say the least. But even someone like Carlos Vargas has been able to give you sub 325 ERA, albeit they used him up yesterday. But for Seattle, big dumper Cal Raleigh, I believe that he's went deep in 4 straight games, 31 home runs, and he might be able to break the American League record for home runs. Like, he has been that good thus far this season. A 380 on base. JP Crawford is giving you north of 400 on base. Dominic Canzone is now hitting at 285. Or a Polanco, Julio Rodriguez, both hitting between about a 250 to 260. Both of these guys are up to a double figure amount of bombs. Ronnie Tellez hits for no average whatsoever, but you know what? He's giving you the deep ball a little bit as well. For Seattle, they're averaging just below 5 runs per game when they are away from home, so I do think that they're going to be able to do a solid job here. Now, I think that they come back to earth after a really, really high-scoring expose against the Chicago Cubs, so I did set my total at an 8.2. Personally, I would rather take an 8 over rather than an 8.5 under, so we shall see where this matriculates, but I had a -105 or better. Also looking at Seattle on the money line. 913, 914 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox hit the road. They're facing off against the LA Angels. Jack Onowitz is on the bump for the Halos. You got Walker Buehler on the bump for Boston, and Boston is a -120 to a -125 favorite. The Angels are between +105 to +110 with a total of 9. The over is -115. The under is -105. I'm willing to take a shot on the over. I set my total 9.3. Recognize that Boston is obviously without Rafael Devers moving forward, but you still have Weiler Abreu, who's been able to give you 13 plus home runs, and you still have, even though you don't have a ton of home run power with the Boston Red Sox, a lot of guys are just pretty effective in general in terms of moving the line and being able to get on base, as you've been able to get really good production out of someone like a Rafael recently. He's hitting above a 250. Jarren Duran has been going down the toilet bowl a little bit, but that said, Carlos Cervantes has been solid with about a 355 on base. It's been a little bit in and out of the fold. Abraham Toro is hitting north of 280 as well. Robert F. Snyder, Rami Gonzalez, these guys have been very rock solid. And for Marcelo Meyer, 4 home runs in his first 66 at-bats, but he's really provided nothing other than that. And for the LA Angels, you want to talk about an all-or-nothing team. Boy, oh boy. Team is in the top 3 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. You've got Logan O'Hoppe, Joe Adell with 16 home runs apiece. Adell is hitting at 225, O'Hoppe at 270 on base. Taylor Ward, 19 home runs, 271 on base. Even Mike Trout with his 12 home runs. He's only hitting about a 235, albeit since coming off the injury list has been quite a bit more effective, but Ori Soler hitting about a 207 with his 8 home runs. So either the team is going to go yard or they're going to give you absolutely nothing whatsoever. But I'd say when it comes to this LA Angels team, you've been able to have really not a lot with regards to this bullpen and what they've been doing there, as you've been able to have Brock and Roll Burke, Ryan Zefrion, Kenley Jansen, Reed Detmers, so albeit has been a little bit better, all providing north of a 430 ERA, and it is an improved bullpen with Hunter Strickland really looking rock solid for this team, but you're going to be outgunned by the Boston Red Sox, who have been a pretty solid bullpen. You've got to love what Aroldis Chapman has been able to bring to the table. He's still giving you north of 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's still supplying a sub-2 ERA. Additionally, you've been able to get really good production out of Garrett Woodlock as a long guy. He's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You might need it with the way that Walker Buehler has been performing this season. As for Buehler, he is giving up darn near 2 home runs per 9 innings. That's less than tremendous. 5.95 ERA. He's been giving up 3 walks per 9, about 8 punch-outs per 9. I do think that there's positivity coming for Walker Buehler. I recognize that his last few starts have been not great, to say the least, as he has given up at least 3 runs at each out of his last 4 starts, so that's something to be concerned about. But Justin Slayton has sub-350 ERA. Justin Wilson has been able to do a pretty rock-solid job as well. And for Jack Conowitz, I just have absolutely no faith in this guy whatsoever. He gives up a lot of walks, he gives up a lot of hard contact, and he doesn't get strikeouts. You let me know what he does well. 5.38 ERA. Fielding opponent is a 4.69, 1.8 home runs, 4.2 walks per 9 innings with less than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, albeit coming off of 2 road starts that aren't necessarily so bad, but for Jack Conowitz, whenever he's been in the city of Los Angeles, it's not necessarily been so savory for him in terms of his home starts as far as the season, providing a 5.12 ERA. He's given up 5 home runs in 31 and 2/3 innings, so I do think that for the Red Sox, they do go on the road, get the job done in a higher scoring game. So I total 9.3, like the over, and the money line of Boston up to -144, 9:15, 9:16 on the betting board. The New York Yankees are on the road facing off against the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati, who's on to Nick Lodolo getting the start for them, and you've got Alan Wanens on the bum for the New York Yankees, and the Yankees do find themselves as a slim favorite here of anywhere between -115 to a -123, and between plus even money plus $1 to plus 105 is that number on Cincinnati. 9.5 to 10 is the total on the 10. Under is -115, the over is -105 on the 9.5. Over is -120 to -125. Under is between even and plus 105, and with the Yankees, I'm going to be willing to lay it here. I did set them at a -128 on the money line, and Wanens actually looked really good at the minor league level. Like, this guy is supplying a sub 125 ERA when he's gotten his starts in past years for the 2023-2024 campaigns. Spent those years with the Atlanta Braves. I believe they got something like 8 total appearances, was rocking a 7.20 ERA. That was not great to say the least, but he looks like a completely different man, albeit it's just at the AAA level. But across 11 total appearances, 0.90 ERA, 10.6 strikeouts, 2.3 walks per 9 innings, 1 home run allowed in 50 innings. I think that this guy could be the real deal, and even if he's not, you're backed up by a bullpen for the New York Yankees, and I'm not going to go out here and call it amazing or anything like that, but now Luke Weaver's back in the fold, Yuri De Los Santos, Francisco Cruz, Tim Hill have been able to give you a sub-3.5 ERA. It is a Yankees team that does rank in the top 10 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, and a 3.46, and you have a Cincinnati Reds team that's more like 18th in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They had to put Graham Ashcraft, their long guy, on the injured list. That's not necessarily too much of a loss, but they did have to utilize pretty much a bullpen game on Saturday. You've got Lyon Richardson, who's been pretty rock solid. He's been able to give this team a sub-2 ERA. You've had the likes of Taylor Rogers, Tony Santillan be a little bit up and down, and Emilio Pagan, even though the ERA is not bad, he has been giving up a lot of home runs, so that does lead to a little bit of caution. And though the Cincinnati Reds have actually been a relatively solid run-producing team thus far this season, 10th of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, I just don't know who you can rely upon other than Elly De La Cruz. Like, De La Cruz has been great. 16-plus home runs. He's able to give you those 20-plus stolen bases. He's moving the line for this team. And then you do know that you're going to get a pair of guys, TJ Friedel and Gavin Lux, that find a way on, both north of 350 on base. With Friedel, he's been up to about a 378 on base. But on side of Elly De La Cruz, you've got Matt McClain, who's hitting 9 home runs, but he's hitting right around the middle of 200, and you really don't have a lot of reliability outside of that, as Santiago Espinal doesn't give you any sort of power whatsoever. Jake Fraley, Will Benson, Spencer Steer, only at 230 or lower. That's been a little bit of an issue, and for the Yankees, they have had their issues being able to score runs. They have scored 3 runs or fewer, and I believe all but 1 out of their last 9 games, so it has been an almighty funk for them. Do I think that they could bust out a little bit more here against Nick Lodolo? Yes. For Lodolo, career low, 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.71 ERA, though he's only giving up about 1.2 home runs, 2 walks per 9 innings, so I need to be able to do a pretty rock solid job there. But for the New York Yankees, you do know that you've got Aaron Judge still in the lineup, as I should say 4 runs or fewer with the Yankees, because they put up a 4 spot yesterday. But that said, for Judge, he's obviously been able to do a solid job with a 468 on base throughout the 26 home runs this far this season. Giancarlo Stanton's coming off the injured list, has been able to give you some production as well. He's sitting above 300, hasn't really gone deep, but just the fact that he's moving the line is big, because this is a little bit of an all or nothing lineup for the Yankees. You've had Austin Wells on it at very Wells in terms of an average 280 on base out of him. Paul Goldschmidt has been a little bit hot and cold, down below a 360 on base, but Trent Grisham has now give you 15 plus bombs. He's up to about a 345 on base. Ben Rice has been starting to go a little bit dry with his overall production as well, but I do think that they're going to be able to get to Lodolo in this bullpen. I did set the Yankees at a -128. I like their money line, and I do like this little under. I set my total 9.2. We're wrap things up with 917, 918 on the card. The Chicago White Sox playoffs to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Eduardo Rodriguez goes for the Snakes, and it is Shane Smith who's on the bum for the White Sox. The White Sox do find themselves as a slim underdog between plus 105 to a plus 114, between -124 to a -125 is that number on Arizona. 8.5 is the total. The over is -120, and the under is even, seeing a straight 9 out there as well. The under is -120, and the over is even. I set my total at an 8.3, so I'm willing to dive in on the under. Eduardo Rodriguez has some rough numbers this year. A 5.92 ERA, feeling a pen that's just a skoge lower than that, as he has been giving up north of 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. The walks numbers have not necessarily been tremendous either, with 3.3 walks per 9, but he's getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he has just looked like a completely different pitcher since coming off the injury list. 3 starts since coming off the injury list. He has given up either 1 or 2 earned runs in every single one of them, 6 total runs, 5 of which have been earned. That was against the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and the Cincinnati Reds. So not the monsters of the Midway, but not the worst teams either. And now he goes up against the White Sox team that is in the bottom 4 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. You have not been able to get a lot of power out of this team, as you've got Miguel Vargas, who's been able to give 10 home runs this season. Now, credit to the Chicago White Sox. They were able to win that series on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's their second road series won all season long. But I mean, you got a bunch of guys that in general just are not giving you a ton at the plate. Luis Robert continues to hit below the Bedell's line of 200. Joshua Palacios has been awful for the team. Whenever they've given Josh Rojas at bats, he has not been too tremendous either. Michael A. Taylor is hitting a 215. Ryan Noda is hitting 100. So, yeah, this is a rough lineup. Andrew Benintendi has been able to give a bit of something. 6 home runs as far this season. He and Mike Tauchman are moving the line. And Chase Meredith, he's been able to about a 270 as well, along with Edgar Quiero. He's been solid at the catcher spot as well, but not a lot to be had there for the White Sox. They are hovering right around about 21st in the big leagues in terms of bullpen area. You've been able to find a bit of something. Some of these guys like Steven Wilson, Jordan Leisure, these guys give you a sub 4.50 ERA. Grant Taylor has a little bit of upside as well, but you've got some of these guys like Brandon Iser. They just put him on the injury list. Cam Bouger, but he hasn't been great either. And for Shane Smith, he's actually been the real deal for the team thus far this season. 2.85 ERA, closer to a 3.56 fielding dependent, because he is giving up north of 3.3 walks per 9 innings, but has kept the ball in the yard, giving up a little bit over a half a home run per 9 innings. Now he does have to compete with an Arizona Diamondbacks team that they do find themselves in the top 5 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, but having to go down from elevation, that is a little bit of a issue for a lot of these guys. You do have Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, who's been able to give you a home run every about 13 to 14 at-bats. Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez, they've been able to do a nice job with the power with Suarez. 25 home runs, hitting a 250. Corbin Carroll, 340 on base. You've got Lourdes Gurriel, who's been able to pick it up after a rough start to the season. And then just a lot of guys in general that find a way on. Geraldo Perdomo will give you a 350 on base. Pavin Smith, a 385 on base. Ketel Marte, again, 420 on base. Gabriel Moreno is finding a way on as well. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, the big issue that you do have with the team is the bullpen. They have been in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen area. You've been able to have a few guys be able to step up, as Shelby Miller along with Jalen Beeks have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA, but past that, Juan Murillo, Justin Martinez, a long guy in someone like Anthony DeSclafani, Bryce Jarvis, these guys have been posting up north of a 4 ERA. So you do have your issues there, but Rodriguez has really been able to round in form. I think that Shane Smith gives you a good start as well, and I did set my total as a result at an 8.3. I like the under. And for the Diamondbacks, set them at a minus 142, so I'm going to be willing to roll with them on the money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Monday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters M, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is on an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, that is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And big thanks once again to Ben Wilson, who does great work here at the network, for joining me in the live segment. Coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you.